Child-led learning is very important in our home. As a home educator, I have the time and space to allow my children to explore their own interests and to learn about what they actually want to learn about. And it is a wonderful freedom that we have as home educators. And so today I'm going to share with you what 1 week of child-led learning looks like in our home through the eyes of my 5-year-old son. I truly believe that child-led learning is one of the most effective ways for children to learn. And in our home we call this project time, and it is a part of our daily rhythm that we have every day that we're at home doing our daily rhythm. We have project time scheduled in. And it is not a time for the child to go off and do a project on their own or with their siblings, but it is a time for the adult, the parent in this case, to be present and actively involved in the process. So project time is a time of togetherness. So I'm going to go through practical examples of what we actually did last week, and I'll include clips here. And as we go through it, I'll just talk a bit more about project time and why I think it is so important. The first project was kite making. So my son decided, just out of the blue, during project time that day, that he was going to make a kite. Now he has done this a few times before. I think the idea originally came from his forest school. I think they originally made kites there. And he's taken that idea and a number of times he's gone off and created kites. So on this particular day, he did that again. He got his bit of paper and his glue and whatever he used and the string, and he made his own kite. I just want to talk a little bit here about why I'm so passionate about and love project time so much. And it all comes from when I read about the Reggio Emilia approach. Now, this is an approach, if you don't know, which originates from Reggio Emilia in Italy. And it began after the Second World War, when the community in that town were rebuilding their lives. And this approach was then put into preschools within Reggio Emilia, and it is now a huge thing. Educators all around the world know about Reggio Emilia, and they go there and visit the preschools because of the amazing educational approach that they have. And it is absolutely wonderful. It is fascinating to read about. I love it so much. And project time, what my passion for it, comes from the Reggio Emilia approach and the things that I've learned through the books that I've read on that. And while it is impossible to embody Reggio Emilia, this approach, into a home situation, I love to take the ideas from it and try and implement them at home in different ways. And so one of the ways that I want to talk about is that during project time, I take the way that they view teachers in Reggio Emilia preschools, and I try and apply that to our project time. So in the Reggio Emilia preschools, they have teachers, but not in the traditional sense. They are in more of a researching, collaborator, stimulator of learning role within the preschools. And I love that way of thinking about learning alongside your child by observing them and by trying to stimulate their learning. And so I try and take that into our project time. I think of myself not as teacher in that sense, but in how can I collaborate with my child, how can I stimulate their learning, and how can I observe them and research how they are learning so that I can help them learn better. And so the next day after my son did his kite project, I laid out some materials and I put his kite that he'd made in the middle of those materials. And I kind of just left it there. And when he came down the next morning, he kind of picked it up and was starting to work on it. And he worked for a little while on it by himself. And then I came over and I could see he was starting to lose interest a bit. And he was flying it around the room a few times, and it was flying okay, but he was not super happy with how it was flying. And I said, how could you make it fly better? That's all I said. I said, how could you make your kite fly better? And how could you make it fly higher? Because he'd expressed that he was not happy with how it was flying around the room. And so that was me trying to kind of collaborate and stimulate a bit more learning in that process. And what he did was he then picked up other bits of paper, tried to make some wings, I think, for his kite is what he should do, and see how he could make it fly a bit better. What are these bits?
The wings.
And what are they going to do?
To make it fly.
And that's kind of where that ended that day. And I know that in the future, we'll probably pick up this kite project at some time and continue, and he'll continue to learn through it. And it's just really fun to see how a little child of 5, how you can so easily stimulate their learning and just help them to learn better through project time. And I hope you can see that this is also not super complicated. I think when people think of project time, they think of a big project, like, wow, it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to be a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And of course, some wonderful projects can be that. But also, I want to be realistic. And realistically, a lot of our projects look like this during the day. They are small pockets of time, maybe an hour or so, where my son is focusing on a specific thing that he's making, and then that'll be it for the day. And maybe he'll pick up the next day, maybe he won't. And that is really the essence of project time, is that my son gets to choose. He is the one who decides when the project ends. Moving on to project number 2, which is the following day, the first thing we did was made banana bread. I wanted to make banana bread. My son thought that sounds like fun during project time, and so he got involved with that as well. And I love project time when it becomes a whole family thing, when all the kids get involved all together. So all my sons got involved, even my little 2-year-old, with making the banana bread. And I love that. And then my son, after that, decided he wanted to do his little science experiment. So he has a little science experiment box that he got for Christmas. And he just went through, picked out a couple of experiments he wanted to do, and we did those. So we made some like stretchy gloop stuff. And he made some little squishy aliens that he's made before and he wanted to make again. And there was also one where he had to put some flowers in some dye, and hopefully it'll make the flowers red from the dye. And those are the little experiments we did that day. I do also want to point out that these are not activities in the traditional sense. Although it might seem like some of these are just activities that have been plucked from nowhere, they are actually things that are based on my current child's current interests. And so you can't necessarily just take what I've done and put it into your life, into your home education day, because it might not have the same level of effectiveness as it does within my home. And similarly, if you do something and I see someone else do something in their home and I just pluck that activity and put it in my home, it's not necessarily going to be as effective, because it's all about your current child and where they are in their interests. And it's all about how they're responding to it. So it's not like you can just copy and paste activities. You really have to be observing your child and what they're interested in. And maybe you're thinking that this all sounds wonderful, but you don't even know where to start. And so I have created a guide that is for you if you are a UK parent of a young child ages between 4 and 6, and you are either in or you're about to enter your first year of home education. I have created this guide exactly for you, and it'll take you step by step through exactly what to do for your first year of home education. And in it, I talk about project time and how to get started with that. And if you're not quite ready for that, then I also have a free masterclass, which will help you take your very first step into your home education journey. Project number 3 was my son decided he wanted to do some painting, and so I set up the paints for him and the easel and let him crack on with that. And I was there at the side, just kind of observing what he was doing. And so I want to just draw out, the point I want to draw out here is that different children do different things during project time. My son is very creative in the more traditional sense of being very interested in arts and crafts type things, whereas my older son is not so interested in that, and so he is doing different things during project time. Bringing it back to the Reggio Emilia approach again, Loris Malaguzzi, who is the founder of the Reggio Emilia approach, wrote a poem called The 100 Languages of Children, and I want to just read a little excerpt from that for you now. It says, "The child has 100 languages, 100 hands, 100 thoughts, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking." And the speaking bit especially refers to the fact that children express themselves, especially young children, express themselves in so many different ways through things like art and craft, through things like the arts, like drama and music and different things like that. And so that's what that part of the poem is referring to. And I absolutely love this because, yes, children express themselves through making things with their hands, through clay, through paint, through drawing, through all these different media, and through drama, through music. I love the idea so much. And so that's really the point I wanted to make about this project. Project number 4 was my son made a card. He made a birthday card for a family member. And this is one of the best ways to use project time, is for a meaningful, practical task, something that is going to then be used. And of course, my son then went and gave it to the family member, and that is a little moment of connection. And that is also one of the things that I love about the Reggio Emilia approach, is that it is all based around relationships. Relationships between the children, relationships between the children and the adults, relationships between the children and their community, and then also relationships between the children and their environment. Reggio Emilia is all about relationships, and this is shown in so many different ways that I don't have time to go into now. But I just love that at the heart of the Reggio Emilia approach is relationships. Project number 5 was my son wanted to do origami. He wanted to specifically make an origami boat. And this was inspired by a book that we own that we've read a number of times, and it has little pockets, and in each of the pockets there's a little thing to read or a little thing to do, and at the end there is little paper, there's paper to make little origami boats. And so this inspired my son to decide he wanted to do that activity. He wanted to make the little origami boats. And so that's what we did. We made the origami boats. My sons all wanted to get involved with this, and then we kind of floated them in our little laundry basket that we have. And that was fun. And then my son also decided we wanted to make something else with origami. So we also ended up making a frog, and what else? We also made a fortune teller. Do you remember those little things that you kind of do that and then, yeah, it kind of tells your fortune, and it's a really fun, silly thing to do. And so they absolutely loved that. And then funnily enough, we had a paramedic at our home, and while we were waiting for an ambulance, my son, we were doing origami together. We decided we wanted to do a bit of origami, and the paramedic actually made a little dog for us. And so that's another little fun thing that we did, and a little moment of connection in an otherwise fairly stressful situation. The point I want to draw out here is about the role of the adult being not passive, being active. The adult is not just sitting back and kind of doing nothing, because that's not really project time then. The adult is actively involved in one way or another, whether that's through observation, just watching and recording and noticing the interests that your child has, or whether that's through collaboration, providing something else within the environment to make them think more about something, whether that's asking a question or actually placing something into the environment. That's another way to do that. And also just providing resources. For example, during this origami moment, I had to provide the videos so that you could watch the videos to do the origami, to do all the other things you wanted to do, like the frog and the fortune teller. And so the adult has an active role to play during project time. And that was our week of project time. It always looks different. No 2 days are exactly the same. And I'm always learning and growing as an educator of how to better help my children learn. And child-led learning is an absolutely fabulous way to do that. And it is one of the most effective ways that I have found within our home. Our children have learned so much through this style of learning, and I'm always trying to get better at this type of learning and become a better educator in this way, a better researcher, a better collaborator, a better stimulator of learning. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you in my next one.